Your Purdue Boilermakers have earned a 2 seed in March Madness. They're playing on Friday. We're going to be talking about it all. This is officially our March Madness bracket reveal show here on Boilers in the Stands starting right now. Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr. Alongside me, as always, is Joe Jackson and Craig Bowers. I am still here at the United Center. Just got done talking with the victorious Purdue Boilermakers after they go on to win the Big Ten tournament over the Michigan Wolverines. And we're going to be talking all about the NCAA bracket reveal that just happened as Purdue climbs from a 3 seed, as most anticipated, to a 2 seed. That is pretty amazing when you consider the last 4 days and everything Purdue had to do to climb that ladder, and they did. And so you don't always see, tournament championships have any real bearing on seeding, but you saw it here today. And before I throw it to Joe and Craig, I know they did about a half hour earlier on the post game show for Purdue and Michigan, but this is still a Boilers podcast. And so I just want to give my initial thoughts on the team itself. And it was just such an amazing environment here at the United Center watching Purdue take down the number 1 seed Michigan Wolverines. And, Purdue is no stranger to winning championships and raising trophies and confetti falling on their heads. But this particular group hadn't won a championship without Zach Edey. And to watch them take this 4-game win streak, 4 games in 4 days. The first time Purdue has done that since 1920 was an impressive feat. 7 straight wins at the United Center, 2 Big Ten championships here in the United Center, 7 games in a row. The Bulls haven't won that many games in a row since 2021, to give you an idea of what Purdue has done here. And it was really just a role reversal, and what made this one of my favorite games I've seen over the 10 years of coverage that we've been doing on this channel, simply because you just don't see Purdue as the underdog very much, especially over the last 5 or 6 years. They're very rarely the underdog, and today they were, and it was just very cool to see that moment in the second half where you, as a fan that's watched this team so many times, where they're like, they got him. You could see it. Braden Smith had that ball on a string, in complete control of the game. 11 assists, 0 turnovers. The 2-man game that him and Kaufman-Renn played was just a brilliant, magnificent effort. The senior class to go out on their terms in Big Ten play, the best, the winningest senior class in Purdue history. To really put their stamp in their final Big Ten game here today. I'm very happy and proud of those guys, and it's been a privilege to cover them. And then Oscar Clough, when you add into that senior class, just completely dominant over these last 4 days. So they found their championship medal and effort and heart and intensity in playing as a team. And I think we're not going to share any of the locker room stuff. Craig will put that stuff up on YouTube later. But I think the biggest thing I heard commonality talking to each person is they're starting to play more connected, and communication on the defensive end is the biggest difference. It's not necessarily scheme. Maybe they're not switching as much. Maybe they're fighting through some of those ball screens a little better, but ultimately this team is starting to play as connected as they have all season long, and they're ready for March Madness. And I'm sure they're pretty relieved that they're playing on Friday and not Thursday.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the, in addition to simply just getting the 2 seed, you jump up there. I know they do have to go out west for the potential Sweet 16, which we'll talk about. But yeah, you get the Friday, you get the St. Louis home pod for the first 2 weeks, and that was by far the kind of closest location to West Lafayette. So, Boilers, Craig, you could probably tell me a better estimate of how far of a drive, but I had a brother that lived there, so I made a lot of drives from Northwest Indiana to St. Louis, which I remember being right about 5 hours. I don't know if it's a little bit shorter from West Lafayette, but just really big to get to that 2 seed, because some of the 14 seeds are a little scary, I think, and then you get the St. Louis pod, and then obviously just you have the really good vibes going into this. So that's to me, those are just the
Yeah.
three like very quick takeaways I have from the reveal.
Yeah, St. Louis is a 4-hour drive from Lafayette. So anybody that's actually in town around Purdue, it's a really, really short drive, closer than a lot of away games you could go to during Big Ten regular season. Obviously, that place should be packed. I think it's going to be really important that people do buy up tickets because, like, low key, that second game could be against Missouri, which has a really short drive to Missouri, and you certainly don't want to give them a home crowd situation. So I do think it's important that Purdue fans show up and show out. Not sure Missouri can beat Miami, but if they do, you want to make sure you have that stadium flipped so that the team closest doesn't have the home crowd and Purdue does. Greg, you had me confused for a second in the way that you worded the expected, because I thought you were saying everyone expected them to bump up to a 2, and then by the time you got done talking, I realized you meant you expected them that everybody expected them to be a 3. It's shocking. Like, I mean, just I'm going to jump to that right off the back. It is shocking. There were a handful of people that were projecting them as the last 2 today. But by and large, it felt like that was a little crazy because the committee's never waited to really put much emphasis, at least from what we've seen from the outside. It hasn't appeared that they've waited to put much emphasis on the big, like a conference championship game. The people that I follow and trust, the people that we bring on the show, all said like Purdue was locked into a 3 seed, but they could get to that number 1 3 seed. And then you hear the committee chairman come on, or whoever they had come on, talking about their decision, that flat out said, like, yeah, we had a contingency bracket in case Purdue won, because they started like going into the tournament. They started as the 11th overall seed and then managed with the win today to go all the way up to the 8th overall seed. I like that feels like quite a bit of a reversal of what we've seen in the last 5, 6, 7 years.
I think, and this is pure speculation, I would bet Purdue benefited a little bit from like just how irrelevant Sunday had been in the past, that there might have almost been a little bit of an overcorrection this year from the committee. I again, that's it's all speculation. Who knows? I do think that they maybe could have benefited slightly from that, of the committee just being like, here, look, like, yeah, we value Sunday, like told you. But regardless, Purdue, that's what if that's what happens, then Purdue will take the break, or maybe this is just what normally the committee does, and Purdue just with the really good win bumps up there anyways. Yeah, so they play Queens. They will be playing on Friday. Times are not out just quite yet, but they will take on Queens as the 15th seed. Queens won the ASUN Conference Tournament, beating Central Arkansas in a really fun overtime game. They were 18-13 during the regular season, 13-5 during ASUN play. Queens also just kind of running through some of their notable opponents. Lost by 20 at Villanova, lost by 25 to Virginia, lost by 38 to Wake Forest, 28 to Arkansas, 41 to Auburn. Their best win was probably their latest win, neutral site win over Central Arkansas to win the ASUN tournament championship. Obviously, I don't think any Purdue fan are going to overlook a team. Like, you just kind of don't have to go deep into the history well to pull up why Purdue fans wouldn't overlook this team. I think out of the 15 seeds, this was ranked as the lowest 15 seed per like the chart that the NCAA put out. Their team, we'll have a more in-depth preview on Queens in a little bit, but just the general overview, they're a very good offense. They're a very terrible defense. That's just kind of, they want to play fast offensively. They make a lot of shots, but then defensively, they do basically nothing well. So again, I know Purdue's not going to overlook them, fans aren't, but that's just like the very, very quick overview.
I would just say overall, my instant reaction is, not only is it shocking that Purdue finds their way to a 2 seed, but when there was like a week ago or not a week ago, it was a couple weeks ago when they did their first reveal of the top 16 seeds and they showed the regions, and it was where it could lay out where Purdue could play Arizona and Gonzaga in their same region. And I just think big picture, And we'll see how it all lays out. And maybe I'll put my foot in my mouth here, and one of these teams will knock them off. But I just don't think they could have gotten a better draw, not just from a 2 seed standpoint, or that they're going to play in St. Louis the first 2 weekends. That Arizona's your 1 seed, Gonzaga's your 3 seed. Wisconsin, we all know what Wisconsin is capable as a 5 seed. Look at the wins they have on their schedule this year. They have the guard play to make a big time upset, maybe knock off a 1 seed in there. And so I just think overall, they could not have asked for a better draw all the way across the board. Anyone in this bracket, I am more than happy to say bring them on and let's see if they can get to Indy. Arizona is a very talented team, and obviously they could beat Purdue. Not saying they can't. They're extremely talented. They won their tournament championship as well last night. I think beating Houston was a great game, but I think they do match up pretty well with Arizona, who isn't really known for shooting too many threes. They're very big. They're going to beat you up down low, but Purdue's got their own bigs. So I just think overall I'm very happy with the draw that Purdue got.
Yeah, I think my initial reaction to the draw, one, I for the most part like the 7-10 matchups that Purdue got. Like I said, I like the fifth. You're gonna like any of the 15 matchups, but I do like this one for Purdue. I think that this, if things go chalk, which it's March, who knows what's gonna happen, right? Wisconsin could beat Arizona, etc. BYU could go crazy, something like that. But if things go chalk, where you're gonna probably play Miami, Gonzaga, and then Arizona is like Gonzaga. They're a team. They're known for dominating on the interior with they run 2 bigs generally. Arizona, they dominate the paint on both sides of the floor. They run at least 2 bigs on the floor at all times, and so it comes back to if Clef and TKR play like they did during this Big Ten tournament, I think Purdue can find themselves in good matchups with any of these teams. But at the same time, like I think Arizona for sure, Gonzaga to probably a lesser extent, have the bigs where it's like if Clef and TKR aren't on, it can look a lot like that first matchup with Michigan, where just like Michigan dominated the paint on both sides. But again, this goes back to, I mean, we were saying an hour and a half ago that Clef probably had a really good argument for winning Big Ten like tournament player, like most outstanding player. So like Clough seems to be playing some of his best basketball at the right time. We talked, Braden and TKR had their insane run, and TKR has been playing really good basketball for the last month and a half in the large majority. So it's a good matchup in terms of like, I think Purdue would rather have to battle bigs down low than fly around on the perimeter. Obviously doesn't mean that Purdue's going to go far or anything like that for sure. But that was what stood out to me. It's just like how much of an emphasis this region's most likely going to have on the bigs and double bigs at that.
Right. If we're going to flip it back to the very first team, because that's kind of where you like where we started heading here. Now that you said big picture, you guys have both talked about your big picture. I was happy about it as well, honestly, and we'll get to like, the last team that we may take on in a little bit, but I honestly was hoping for the Duke draw, just with the point guard injury. I don't feel like that Duke team is as good, has looked as good as they did with him, and that's not a team that, from a guard standpoint, scares me as much as some of the other teams that are on the 1 seed line. But nonetheless, I'm with you, Greg. I think our bigs can match up with Arizona's bigs, and then it gets trickier from there. But we'll do more in-depth stuff later. Joe, you brought up Queens. Just looking at this team as a 15 seed, the thing that jumped out to me is overall height of this team, right? Is like their biggest dude, 6'10", but he doesn't play that much. Primary bigs that play more are 6'9", yet when you look at them, like if you go to college basketball analytics and look at kind of how they score, like you said, they want to get out and go fast, but they're also in that 100th percentile on second chance points. They rank really, really high in offensive rebounds, yet they're in the first percentile, 43.7% in effective field goal percentage. So they do rely a lot on getting those offensive rebounds, getting those second chance points. And I just feel like, having not seen them, Like those smaller conference schools that rely on being bruisers and getting rebounds don't generally fare well when they go up against competition level.
So real quick, and you're not gonna like this. Can you look at what state is in the parentheses of the queens you were looking at?
Oh my God. There's 2 queens?
There's like I think a D2. Are you looking at the New York one? I think is the other one. Because they're playing the one from North Carolina. So
That is
um,
hilarious.
it checked
Hey.
out because you said their biggest bigs was there's a 6'10" guy. Oh, is that Gus Larson? Regardless.
All right, I got the right team up now, Joe. I got the right team up now.
Because you were saying the offensive rebounding stuff, and I was like, they're like right at D1 average. Yeah.
I did not know there were 2 queens, and the more hilarious thing is I should know because my cousin is a professor at Queens
No,
in North Carolina.
and I think this is important because I think most fans would assume that we're playing a team from New York. So, I think you're helping people that are watching, and they're not gonna, they're gonna rely on us. You guys are gonna do a real deeper dive preview later in the week.
Yeah.
And you guys will have an ability maybe to watch some tape if such tape exists of said Queens team. It does. So these guys will be able to get their eyes on it and have a more in-depth thing. But I think that's okay. Like, as funny as that was, I think most people, including myself, I almost put a post about something with like Queens Boulevard because I love Entourage, and I almost said something about that. And so now, Kraig, you saved me from making myself
I just went
like
to
an idiot.
We had 30 minutes, and I just went to College Basketball Analytics and typed in Queens and grabbed the first one. So
Well, that's okay.
did not realize there were 2. It is what it is.
Okay. So, I mean, where else do you guys want to go with this? I mean, we're welcome to keep talking Purdue versus Queens, but I just think overall, I think we should just stick to big picture. I also probably will leave at some point and let you guys finish however long you guys want to go with this. But just looking at it on the surface around the Big Ten, I mean, obviously you both do such a great job of looking at the bigger landscape. But I'm looking at Illinois specifically as the 3 seed. They take on Penn, and if things go, and you never know, VCU plays North Carolina, but if North Carolina moves on, North Carolina versus Illinois in that second round, that's a tough second round draw for Illinois to make it to a Sweet 16. I think that the Big Ten should have, in my opinion, 5 or 6 teams that make the Sweet 16. They have enough talent that it's like enough's enough. I know we beat the crap out of each other all year long, but come on, like, it's time for the Big Ten to step up this year. And that includes Michigan, even if they got embarrassed tonight. I would try not to talk too much crap, but there was a guy hitting my seat all day today that was really pissing me off, I'll tell you that. But outside of that, any big takeaways when you look at the bigger landscape of some of these pathways for the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at like Michigan State, and that's just it's a tough region. But Michigan State and UCLA, UCLA is going to be a trendy pick probably for the Sweet 16, especially if you're not overly optimistic with with this UConn team. UCLA has been playing much better ball. I'm just going to kind of work under the assumption Dent and Bilodeau are going to be healthy. It's like that's a team that could go on a little bit of run. Now they could potentially match up with Michigan State in the Sweet 16, which would guarantee at least one Big Ten team in the Elite Eight. I think Nebraska, like,
why am I not
just
seeing
want
Nebraska?
To win.
Where are they? Oh,
they're
they
the
are.
4
Troy.
seed in this.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't like. I could see them going on a run. I think they match up interestingly with Vanderbilt. Now, if McNeese beats Vanderbilt, that's a little bit of a tougher one. I like Illinois' draw a lot for them, to be honest, until they get to at least the second weekend. Houston would be interesting. I don't know. I'm with you. I think just like very quick, high level, like one. I'm counting how many teams I think will make the second weekend. Probably, yeah. I think I would go with 5-ish on average. Maybe
I'm surprised. I'm surprised you're
but
going that easy with Illinois and North Carolina. Maybe I have a very
North Carolina doesn't have their best player.
They don't have their best. Yeah, they don't have their lottery pick. So
okay.
I'm not worried about that. But I do think still, just as you look at that bracket as a whole, having to go through Houston, VCU's a scrappy team, and then on the top side of that, obviously Florida and some other teams in there, Nebraska as well. So I think it is tough. Joe, how would you be shocked if Bruce Thornton just puts on a masterclass against Duke and somehow pulls that off in the second round?
Yes, I would be shocked. I also don't think they
Okay.
can overlook TCU. I
Okay, that's fair.
don't love the matchup for them against TCU, to be honest, either.
I
Not that
think-
Bruce can't do it, but those TCU maybe not quite as much. But if I was to hand draw a team that's a bad matchup for Ohio State, Duke's looking pretty close to it.
Was it Indiana? Was it Indiana that was the 8 seed when they took down the first Carlos Boozer and Jason Williams, and when Indiana went to the national championship? I believe they were an 8 seed and beat Duke in the second round with AJ Moye blocking Carlos Boozer. So
Sweet
maybe,
16, it looks like.
Oh, I'm wrong. It was Sweet 16, so they weren't an 8 seed. That's interesting.
No, Indiana looks like was, what years is 2002?
2001, 2002. Whatever.
Indiana was a 5 seed.
Okay. Well, see how my memory is leaving me after 25 years. Well, regardless, that's just where I drew to that. So, yeah, let's see if Ohio State can take them down.
The tip times were released. Purdue will be playing at 7:25 Eastern time for their first round matchup. So they have the late game on Friday. It's going to be on TBS, obviously in St. Louis. They do have the first game of. Hold on. Yeah, they have the first game of the two between, Purdue will play Queens and then Missouri Miami will play after, is what I'm trying to say. So
7:25 Eastern time.
Yes, on TBS.
So 6:25 Eastern time.
And just to be clear, one more time, that's Queens from North Carolina, guys.
Correct.
Don't want any of you to mess that up at all.
Yeah, that would be really bad if you mess that up.
Joe, you've watched Missouri and Miami play, switching it back to Purdue's potential path. Is there anything that jumps out at you about either of those teams, from a they could pose problems standpoint?
I think for Missouri, they're just a very large team, third tallest team in the country. They're a team that maybe doesn't necessarily shoot super well from three, although they're not terrible, but they just want to pound you in the paint for 40 straight minutes. And so again, that's another matchup where I think it goes back to Missouri will be playing two bigs. They do have a 7'5" freshman who's started to play a little bit more as of late. There's a reason Missouri was still 20-11. Now they did beat Florida at one point, but they have a couple good wins. They have some iffy losses, but they're a team to me that again wants to pound it in the paints. Their top 40 offensive rebounding percentage, their top 30 in free throw rate, top 35 in 2-point percentage. That's kind of their MO. Now defensively they struggle a bit, especially guarding out on the perimeter. So Sebastian Mack, if you remember him from UCLA, he's a bulldog that wants to get downhill. Mark Mitchell, kind of this versatile forward. I think that would be an interesting matchup for Purdue if that happened. Now, Miami, they got a couple of former Big Ten players, headlined by Trey Donaldson, who was at Michigan last year, the point guard, Malik Reneau, which everybody should remember from Indiana for the past 3 seasons. They're a team that'll also generally play double big, although I don't know if the talent of their double big is quite as much as Gonzaga or Arizona, but Malik Reneau is interesting. Ernest Ude is interesting. They have a couple dynamic guards in Donaldson and Washington. So I don't, excuse me, I don't know who I'd rather play for Purdue. Probably Missouri, I think. I think Miami's a little bit more well-rounded in terms of what they can do defensively, but another team really good on the offensive glass, really good finishing on the interior, don't want to really shoot any threes. So I think Miami's just the little bit more skilled version of Missouri, is a very lazy comp.
That's fair. My only thing when I initially looked at them was okay, well, Miami's 2 best players we've already taken on multiple times and handled for the most part, and know who they are in terms of what their tendencies are and all of that. Is there any worry from you just with if Missouri wins that matchup and it is where it is. It's in St. Louis. Like, is there any worry from you of that crowd just being super heavy Missouri?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna act like I'm super tapped into the Missouri fan base, but it would make sense. I don't know exactly how far away they are from St. Louis, where they're in Columbia, Missouri. It says so.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how far, but yeah, there would definitely have to be some level of concern of if if fans have a 2-hour drive to go see them, like especially on a Friday night or what that'd be a Sunday evening. Yeah, I feel like a lot of fans could probably get up for that, and I don't actually remember who else is in the St. Louis region off the top of my head. I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
find that right
So
now because that also plays into a little bit.
Right.
Kentucky is also in St. Louis, so like they're gonna travel. Iowa State's they're also gonna travel. I'm assuming so.
Right.
Should be a pretty fun atmosphere.
I am salukily. Are you doing your Darth Vader over there,
I'm
Greg?
sorry, I'm dying. I'm running. Was I breathing into the mic?
Yeah.
I thought
You're like,
I thought I was
dude,
muted. I'm dying.
I thought you were gonna tell me you were my father for a second.
All
All right. So
All right.
I am Saluki. Does drop in here. Mizzou lost by Illinois to 40. So there is that. In terms of, you mentioned they've had a couple of bad losses. If we get a little bit, did you have something to say, Greg, or were you just like jumping back in here?
Yeah, aside from my breathing, when you were talking about, the concerns of, I talked about it yesterday with you, and maybe I'm making something out of nothing, but I'm going to just bring it to the program regardless. And that is, do we know what is the stadium that they're playing at officially? What is the state? Because they don't have an NBA team in St. Louis. So
let me look. I'll get back to you. Give me ramble for a minute. I'll get back to you.
Find that out because there's
I assume it's the hockey arena, but I'm not positive.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to figure out here, because there's another element to my reason I'm bringing that up, because as Joe is about to find out the answer,
the Enterprise Center,
which is home of Saluki here. I am Saluki.
Yeah, hockey.
Okay, yep. So it's the Blues Stadium.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I'll say to that is, and like I said, I'm sure I'm making something out of nothing here, but I'm going to say it anyway. For some hockey arenas that convert to basketball stadiums, at times they have a problem with condensation on the court because they're not used to and not fully equipped to handle a basketball court over a hockey rink. Here at the United Center, the Blackhawks and the Bulls play. It's not a problem. It's never been a problem. But for an arena like this in St. Louis, they don't have an NBA team. So how many my question would be, how many times do they convert that arena into a basketball court? Because that to me is something, and again, could be something out of nothing, but that was one of my concerns yesterday when we talked about the idea of them playing in St. Louis. Maybe it's fair or not, but I just thought I'd bring it to the table.
I got nothing really to add. I know I would have never gotten to that point, and that is something that's fair, though. Like, at least at the United Center, right? They switch between basketball and hockey all the time. I do think that kind of reminded me, and just wanted to bring it up, is you are there, Braggs. Patty, I said, I hope TKR's shoulder, arm is all good. Do you have any insight on that? Did you hear anything?
Yeah, Painter was asked directly about it. We'll share that video later, but Painter didn't answer anything on it. I did not see him in the locker room with locker room availability. I'm assuming he was one of the players at the podium. But when he was asked directly how his shoulder is, Painter brushed it off and was like, I haven't found out because I've been busy doing all this media stuff. So we have not gotten any official word on that. But Rickist here in the chat says in the post game on CBS, TKR said himself he was fine. So then
was it the same shoulder that he had? It was a couple weeks ago that what game was it? Where his shoulder like flared up too. Do we remember? Does anybody know if that was the same shoulder or not?
You guys would know better than me.
I don't remember.
You know what I'm talking about, though. Somebody in the comments got me. I know that they do. I trust them.
Yeah, our comments people always have.
Terrence Ransford in the chat is saying the Missouri Valley tournament and the Illinois Missouri games are at this stadium, which is the. So again, I'm not
I
trying
mean, when we
to.
played in Toronto, a couple of years ago, that court was perfectly fine. So I
Okay.
feel like they've probably got it down to this point, but it's a valid concern. It's certainly come up before. It feels like for the amount of times that basketball gets played on top of, in a hockey arena with one that gets switched back and forth, or even one that's just temporarily that way, that, we haven't heard that many instances of it being bad. So hopefully it's good.
As long as it's not an LED court, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they pulled that. Big 12 pulled that
Yeah,
halfway
I know.
through, I
Yeah, I
think.
know. I joke, which
Yeah.
I like the idea of it, but I also respect that they said timeout. We're not doing this anymore. So
Right. If Purdue does get past the teams we've talked about so far, Joe, the next round is going to be in San Jose, and that is going to be a Thursday-Saturday matchup. I already looked that up.
Yep.
So in that instance, going to be a little bit more difficult travel-wise. Although the one thing I will say is UCLA and USC were very, very well attended by Purdue fans. And there are a lot of Purdue alumni on the West Coast. So that should help to bolster that a little bit. And then if people from the Midwest can go ahead and travel and get out there, obviously going to be super important. But that first matchup, potentially, if we're just looking at the highest seeds, could be BYU or Gonzaga. Obviously, we know BYU has one of the highest scoring freshmen in the country, and AJ DeBonsta. He's a very dynamic wing that has the size and length that typically gives Purdue trouble. But that team has lost their second best player on the year and kind of struggled and limped towards the end a little bit. And then you have Gonzaga, who on paper and just watching them visually seems like a really good matchup for Purdue, because the things they like, to me, they don't have as dynamic a guards as they've had in the past and rely even more on their bigs. And their bigs aren't like 7'4" bigs in the way that a Daimara is, that scare me in terms of being able to, force their will to some degree on Purdue, although Mara didn't do that today.
Yeah, so I'll start with BYU. DeBon says he's going to be, I believe, the first freshman to lead this country in scoring since Trae Young did it in, what was that, 2018 or something like that. Richie Saunders did tear his ACL, unfortunately, a few weeks ago at this point, and by BYU, they started out similar, kind of in the similar vein to Purdue. Like they started out 16-1, then have been 7-10 over their last 17. So really strong start to the season from them, and then kind of tapered off towards the end. Although some of that's due to just the Big 12 and how good it's been this year. The Bance is going to be the big thing. Obviously, if Purdue does match up, I would assume that'll be like the CJ matchup if that comes to fruition. 3-level score, 6'9", lanky, puts the ball in the hoop at an incredibly high level. This is a BYU team that has struggled some defensively, right? And I think there's some things that Purdue can do to pick them apart, especially out of pick and roll. Gonzaga, there's going to be naturally some familiarity with them, just given how much Purdue played them over the last handful of years. And Purdue's also opening the season next year, the opening day against Gonzaga in Vegas, I believe, if I remember correctly. But Gonzaga, they're a lot more defensive dominated this year than really any few team has been in the past. This is the best defense relative to like the rest of the country since 2017 when Gonzaga was runner up. Still a good offense, not as good as it's been, and part of that is just like they take a lot of tough twos. They take very few threes. Now they have skill with EK and Saint Supri, and there's definitely some skill. There's some size, but it's not for the most part like 7-foot bigs. Although they do have one who really doesn't play all that much. It's a lot of like 6'4" guard, 6'7" wing, 6'5" guard, 6'7" four, like size more in that area. They're the most efficient post up offense, I believe, in the entire country, while also being one of the highest usage post up offenses as well. So it's a lot of dumping it down low when they are in the half court. They obviously still want to play fast. So I think it goes back to me of like, if Clough and TKR played the way they did today and during this tournament, I think it's a very good matchup for Purdue. If Clough reverts to some of the stuff we've seen from him a month ago and TKR maybe a little bit longer before that, it can get, I think, into a tricky matchup where Gonzaga in theory could dominate the post. And if that happens, Purdue's going to have to figure things out. I think overall I still like the matchup for Purdue. It's more of just I really do think it just comes down to the bigs have to play well in that one. If the game happens, etc.
When we talk about the light coming on for this team defensively, I do think the other part of the light coming on for this team was their post play. And I think they, over the last 4 days, really have found themselves with their big men getting positioned deeper by the rim and finding different angles to get them the basketball. You saw a few guys dribble through the traffic, kind of be on that right or left side of the lane, kind of turn back around and give a little drop off, where then Oscar would turn into it, and so I think instead of just the conventional go to the elbow of the three, throw it in, back it down, they've found a few different layers now of how they can get the big men the ball with better position towards the rim. And so to your point of it, is Clough going to revert back, or is this the new norm? I have a higher confidence that the bigs are going to continue playing the way we've seen over the last 4 days. If we're comparing then with the defensive side, like, have they figured everything out? And the worry in the back of my head of if they're going to revert back to some of the things that have faltered them defensively, because at the end of the day, that came down to effort. Whereas with the bigs and the things they've found with them and the success they've found in the last 4 days, I feel like our scheme invented and will continue to flourish because they'll keep hammering that scheme.
Yeah, I think you make some good points there. And really, I mean, on both sides of the ball, we talked about it a little bit. Kraig and I did in our quick recap of like my play of the game was when Lawyer curls off of a pin down, kind of drags the guard out and waits to Clough to seal underneath the rim so he can catch and pivot and go up. There just felt like there's been a lot more emphasis on that. And then defensively, like Purdue again was going in drop coverage against the pick and roll, meaning that the big, instead of hedging out, is playing below the screen. We saw that a lot more again in this one where, Purdue's, again, still not good enough defensively that they're just going to shut a team down with that coverage, but it gives them, I think, a little bit more of a fighting chance of forcing a few more mid-range, giving up a few less open, like wide open catch and shoot threes. And I just think it fits this team a little bit better. And I thought Clough played incredibly well in that today. And it also it gives the guards a little bit more time to recover. So I think, to your point, Braggs, like a lot of this, even if it is maybe newer, it feels more replicable than maybe some other things Purdue has done throughout the entirety of the season. And that should give fans some excitement, I would say.
Last thing, and then I'm going to let you guys take the rest of the show the rest of the way. I'm burning at both ends of the candle here at this point here at the United Center, and going to try to get back to my house before 8:30 tonight. Probably have a victory cigar when I sit in my garage and try to cut some clips here to put on social, because this was a fun 4 days. I don't get to see this team in person as much as I'd like with all the Chicago Bears coverage that I have to do, and these last 4 days have been a lot of fun. And so I'm looking forward to this tournament run. I'm looking forward to all the coverage we're going to do. Looking forward to your guys' preview here coming up next week to get us in tune with who we are exactly playing in Queens next Friday in St. Louis. And so that's it. And you mentioned San Jose. I actually was in San Jose for the Super Bowl. So I was in that stadium just a few weeks ago. So bit of irony there, or whatever you want to say, symbolism, whatever. But overall, just happy for Boilers fans, happy for the team. I know how bad they wanted to get this, and you could feel that in the locker room. So stay tuned. I sent Kraig over all the different content we got from the locker room. There's some really good stuff from Fletcher Lawyer, some really good stuff from Omer Meyer, Matt Painter as well. So there's just a bunch of stuff. I got as much as I could for you guys. So hope you enjoyed the coverage over the last 4 days. It was really cool to see Purdue go on this run and finish it off. And now this young nucleus that hadn't experienced raising a trophy and understanding what it takes to win a championship of any kind, now they know. Okay, so we have here an opportunity. Anybody that doubted this team's potential here in March, I think that changed over the last 4 days, which is great because it, I understand why fans are the way they are. Never tell a fan how to fan. But this senior class deserves all the respect in the world from our fan base because they've poured their blood, sweat, and tears into this program for 4 years. So I look forward to the run they're going to have here in March. And with that, enjoy the rest of the show, and I'll stop rambling.
Thank you, Greg. Glad you got a chance to watch him for 4. Okay, Greg's just gone. I guess I won't say what I was going to say to Greg. It's okay. Oh, there we go. Thanks for putting me up the last 4 days. Glad you got a chance to really dive into 4 days of Purdue basketball. Don't forget to check for that computer charger cord when you get home.
You got it.
I think I might have left it behind. So
yes, sir. All
check
right,
you
take
later,
care,
brother.
guys.
Thank
Love
you.
you guys.
Yeah.
Later.
Yep.
Yeah. I think lastly, really, if this team gets to the Elite Eight, Joe, the most probable teams would be Arizona, Wisconsin, Arkansas that they might face. We know Wisconsin really, really, really well. I don't think we need to hit on them again. I watched Arkansas for the first time today, and there were several players on there that I recognized from seeing in previous years. But obviously, also similar to BYU, one of the most dynamic scorers in the entire country, and Darius Acuff. Different way, more of a guard than a wing, obviously, but really, really shifty, can score in multiple ways. And then they've also got Brazil on that team, a really long, I think 6'8", 6'9" type of wing that today was absolutely drilling from outside. When he's at his best, is really good. At one point in time, his freshman year, he was talked about as a potential lottery pick, and then that obviously didn't pan out, and some things have happened along the way. But a very, very athletic, high-level player on that team. And then obviously we've got Arizona, who we've already kind of talked, like you already kind of previewed them a little bit. But I guess just your thoughts on those two. When I first was watching the Arkansas game today, I was like, man, I don't want to face Acuff or Brazil. And then the more I watched, I was like, man, our bigs would just absolutely obliterate this team inside.
And it would have to, because Acuff, like, he is one of the few point guards in the country who could, in theory, go toe to toe with Braden. Acuff's incredible, man. He really is, and he is everything for that team offensively. Brazil's, the super lanky, athletic forward. They're a team that doesn't they're a very efficient 3-point shooting team, top 10 in the country. They don't take a lot, and really, Brazil shot the ball well, pretty much better this season. Most of their shooting though comes from basically 3 or 4 guys, and only Brazil's kind of the stretch big out of that group. So I think it would be an interesting matchup, because also they're not a great defensive team. Similar problems to Purdue of at times just getting exposed on the interior, things like that. I think at another game, I think it's just fair to say for Purdue in general, the X factor is the bigs. Like, Braden's going to do what Braden does. The guards are going to knock down some threes, but it's Braden's what keeps Purdue in the game and can keep Purdue in any sort of game. The bigs are kind of what are able to put them over the top. And they would have to show up in that one, and they would have to show up against Arizona too. And as I said, they're fourth to last. They take the fourth fewest threes in the entire country. Now they shoot them well, but very, very low volume. Only 2 players have attempted more than 100 threes this season. And really only 3 players, I guess, in the rotation are shooting over 35% from 3. But what they give up in that, they make up for in terms of just dominating the paints. They dominate the paint on both sides of the ball. They dominate the glass on both sides of the ball. They have the single best offensive rebounder in the country in Tobe Awaka. Krivas is a 7'2" giant he's not as good as Klingon was at UConn, but he's in that similar vein of just a dude who can erase everything, rebound incredibly well, finish at the rim. They have very physical guards in Bradley and Barry's, and some lankier wings. I think this is not a hot take, because they're the 1 seed for a reason. That would be Purdue's toughest matchup, in my opinion. And I don't. It's one of those years where I don't necessarily love them against any of the 1 seeds. They did just show they could beat Michigan, so they can beat teams of this caliber. It's not that they can't. I just think it's one of those, like Arizona, if they do play them, especially on the West Coast, and what in theory would be more of a home game for Arizona, although Purdue fans are crazy in a good sense. Of they'll just travel. That's going to be a game where Braden's got to be on, bigs have to be on, and you probably got to knock down a couple threes. But that's kind of Purdue's MO to winning most games, so it can happen. I just think, I guess you said Duke was your preferred 1 seed matchup. I'm looking through, like, I guess Michigan would have been mine because Purdue beat them. I guess it probably would have been Florida. I think Florida's slightly worse Arizona, but the one seeds are just good. I kind of rambled on Arizona right there, but those are my thoughts and immediate thoughts on Arkansas and Arizona. We obviously know who Wisconsin is the 5 seed in that part of the bracket as well, and in theory could take on Arkansas in round 2 and maybe Arizona in Sweet 16. I assume that Wisconsin Arkansas game could be a lot of fun. That would be like
Yeah.
95 to 92.
105,
Yeah.
105 to 102.
Yeah.
Any if we're looking at this draw in general, just 1 through 10, in terms of favorability for Purdue, compared to the other draws they could have gotten, where would you rate this?
Just kind of scanning through. Probably like I think I fall somewhere around 7.5. Like I think I don't love having to go out west for them. Just in
Yep.
general, right? You don't want travel if you don't have to have it. I don't love like
And it
out of
goes
the
from a Friday, Sunday to a Thursday, Saturday on
yeah,
that
like
flip too.
yes. So there's some small things like that, and then again, to even just like even if I think Purdue's bigs can hold up, having to in theory go Gonzaga 2 days later Arizona, where the bigs are going to be um, working very hard in both games in theoretical matchups. Like maybe there's some chance of some tiredness and things like that too. But overall, I do generally like the draw for Purdue of teams like, all right, I see the pathway for them to beat these teams. I don't think realistic matchups. I don't think any of these teams, maybe except Arkansas and a potential Elite Eight, are like the overly just like super long and athletic. Arizona is more
Mhm.
physical, although they are big. So it's not like the makeup of these teams aren't ones that just scream like, oh wow, those teams are just the super bad draw for Purdue.
Right, right. I'd probably put it just a tick higher than you, like an 8, 8.5. I was pretty happy with the teams in general. The only thing I would say is like if you were looking ahead and being like, well, maybe a 4 or 5 will upset our 1 and it won't be as difficult of as a game. Like Arkansas and Wisconsin both scare me a little bit still.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, in terms of an Elite Eight matchup, so that would be about the only thing for me. As you look at these 4 different regions, is there one that jumps out as you as being like extremely more difficult paths than the others? Because in previous years, like there's always been one that just hit me really hard. Is like, wow, that is a difficult region. Maybe not quite as much for me this year. Is one feeling like it's overly more difficult?
I think East is where I kind of fall with like Kansas, St. John's is a second round matchup. And maybe not that either of them can win the whole thing, but either of them going on runs wouldn't shock me. Like Michigan State, UCLA, UConn, those are all teams that I could see going on deep runs. Duke's, even with the injury, I sort of think they're just the best team in the country still. So I would go the East region. I think that's to me the toughest. I think the other three seems pretty fairly balanced. Like you have some easier spots, some harder spots. But that the East one is kind of what stood out. Also,
Okay.
we have a chance of getting in that region. We would have a chance of getting Dan Hurley versus Mick Cronin in round 2, and you don't even
Mhm.
have to watch the game. You could probably just watch post game pressers and just enjoy those. And then the winner of that, in theory, could play Tom Izzo too. So get
Yeah.
some fun coaching matchups in this one.
Honestly, the first thing I saw when I saw the East region was this UCLA team has had some ups and downs this year and has played really good basketball of late. And like, I mean, remember a month and a half ago or whatever, everybody was going on and on and on about how Mick Cronin was coaching his kids and he was getting into them too much, calling them out too much, and throwing guys under the bus and everything else. And all of a sudden, in the last month, they turned it all around. So that doesn't necessarily make it right if you disagree with that manner of coaching. But this team looks really, really good all of a sudden. And when I saw that draw, I was like, oh my God, UCLA is going to go to the Elite Eight. And then you've got one game against Duke with an injured point guard. Never know. Like, this could somehow play out into some kind of a magical run for UCLA yet. That was my initial impression of that region.
Yeah, gotta hope Donovan Dent's healthy because that was the biggest thing is Dent was hurt for the first 2.5 months. He started to get healthy right around the Purdue game is when you started to see him flash being 100%. And obviously the first Purdue game, obviously this last one, they take him out of precaution. But the last month or two, you could just see like he has his burst back in it because he dealt with injuries right at the start of the season and he was not healthy for a while. And now as he started to play better, you get Sky Clark back. Yeah, they're a team. I assume they'll be one of the trendier like teams under the like worse than a 4 seed to make the Sweet 16 Elite 8. We'll see what teams pick with against UConn on that, but that would be my initial gut gut reaction is that they'll be one of the trendier teams to go on a deep run and rightfully so.
Right. I know you've got a lot of stuff yet to do tonight because you cover way more than just Purdue, so I want to let you get to that. Last thing, as we looked at this Purdue team, we've talked about this Purdue team all year through the tough time. You and I kind of kept saying like, and sometimes much to the chagrin of some people tuning in, they're like, hey, this is still the team that could potentially get to a Final Four. This is a team that could potentially get to Elite 8, and then anything can happen from there. Team goes to the Big Ten tournament. All of a sudden, looks like the team from earlier in the season. Looks like preseason #1 type of team. And quite frankly, beat Michigan in a way that didn't feel possible when we were looking at the possibilities of how they could beat a Michigan team. If Purdue plays in the manner they did today against Michigan, is a Final Four / national championship type run still available for this team?
Absolutely. I think that's definitely got to be the takeaway from this. And I think we also have to have some level of understanding what was going on with this team a week ago, right? And realize, hey, there's still a pretty low floor for what this team is. And like, is the second round exit the most shocking thing for this team? Probably not. But this team, absolutely, like they have the talent, like, especially with this win today. It wasn't, and we talked about this in our quick kind of recap live reaction, and Salty B says it right there, like beat Michigan at their own game. It wasn't a fluky win in terms of Purdue going just nuclear from 3 or anything like that. Like it was kind of grinding them down, battle on the interior, and gradually just kind of win. And then if Purdue can give themselves that baseline, Braid and TKR are two of the best offensive weapons in the country. And then you have Lawyer flying off screens. We know CJ can go off for 20 any game. So there's I think more than most teams probably seated pretty high. Like they are a team that can just go on this super deep run. They could maybe lose first weekend. I think I would expect them to advance past the first weekend for somewhat comfortably, but yeah, I gotta be excited that hey, this team at least has showed the life again this week.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, when you got off the show the other day, somebody said I'm gonna send in $10 super chat if Kraig says Joe and Craig's magic word. I'm not sure if that's 100% or what our magic word is, but he sent in $10 after that. So apparently I said it. Greg told me to just keep saying whatever I was saying as long as he keeps sending $10. So just letting you know there.
Cool.
Yeah. You got anything else you want to add to this, or do we want to wrap this up?
Do you got any just like your favorite double-digit seed to go on a run? And
my favorite double-digit seed to go on a run.
Yeah,
so
and obviously
just
it's Sunday night and things can change by the time Thursday rolls around.
Oh, man. The terrible thing is the team that I saw him play a couple of weeks ago against a really high level team that I had told myself was going to be my favorite double-digit seed to go on a run. Draws the same team that I was just talking about, potentially making a magical Elite 8 run with a chance to go to the Final Four. Because I think UCF has some dudes, and I think they're athletic, and they can match up with they played some really high-level Big 12 teams. They beat a few of them. They played a lot of them really close. So UCF was going to be my team for that. I'm going to go to the MAC. I'm going to the MAC here, Joe. I'm gonna say Akron
That's what I was looking
because
at
I
too.
feel like, yeah, an injured Texas Tech who like had some life right after he got injured. Like you see a lot of times teams do, like they hold it together for a little bit and then reality sets in. And then an Alabama team that, quite frankly, is just kind of up and down in what they do. And Akron can put up points too, so could maybe stay with them there.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Just for
Oh,
the
I like that Santa Clara team too, though.
10 seed, yeah, against Kentucky and then Iowa State. I think that one
I
could
don't
be
know if they can hold up
interesting.
against Iowa State, but I could see them upsetting Kentucky maybe.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, I think, and I kind of like McNeese, which is I like. I think they're switching of everything. I'm hoping, like, I'm rooting for Nebraska so hard to at least go on, at least make like the second weekend. Um,
Right.
but I just like how McNeese matches up with Vanderbilt, and if they win, how they'd match up with Nebraska. I don't think that they'd be able to do much against Florida, but McNeese will be the 12 seed in the South region. That would be kind of the one I would go with. So just wanted to throw that in there. You got anything
Yeah.
else for or
You
anything?
said five Big Ten teams in the Sweet 16. Like who are your five? Earlier you
Uh,
said that.
it was kind of an estimation, but
Right.
Michigan,
Okay.
scanning through, Illinois. Yeah, that's Michigan State. I think I like them against Louisville. So that's was that three?
Yep.
I'll go UCLA. Uh, UCLA and then Purdue would probably be it.
Okay. You don't like Wisconsin to make it.
I don't love. I don't love them. Like I think Wisconsin's another team to me. I legitimately think they could lose first round or probably make the Final Four. Like I just with how variant they are with 3-point shooting, they can beat anybody on any given night. They can also, I think, still lose to most teams. High
Right.
points and interesting, a really good mid major that does a good job of speeding teams up, forcing turnovers. I think they could pose an interesting thing to um, Wisconsin, and then Arkansas. Like Arkansas would just be a really fun matchup. I'm hoping that happens because I think both teams are very right guard dominance, very efficient offenses, do it in different ways, very fast. I do think Arkansas is a team that could keep up with Wisconsin scoring the ball. Would it shock me? And honestly, there's still a chance I pick Wisconsin to go to the Sweet 16, but would it shock me if they lost to one of those two? Like, nah.
Right. So you did not select Ohio State, Iowa, Nebraska, or Wisconsin in that initial pairing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nebraska was the closest
Uh
one I was to also saying yes. I was
yeah.
50-50 on them.
Last thing. If first number one seed to lose.
Ooh. First number one seed to lose.
There's only one right answer here, Joe.
Just scanning through. Like I'm trying to I don't not Michigan.
Nope.
Yeah, I guess it would be Arizona in the Elite Eight.
There we go, Joe. There we go. That's the right answer.
If
If you're a
I was
Purdue
debating
fan, that's
between
the
them
right
and
answer
Florida.
anyway. You
What
don't
was that?
like Florida as much as I do, huh?
More
Man, I was not as high as Duke as you were before they played Michigan, and then they played Michigan, and I was like, okay, never mind. Duke's actually really good. Then I watched them play a couple times after the injury and I feel like I'm low on Duke again, and I'm probably wrong again, but it is what it is.
and just Cameron Boozer's special. Um, I think
Yeah.
I think the way Duke plays, I just think they have a higher floor in general, and
Okay.
just feel like they should kind of just walk their way into an Elite Eight. But it's March Madness, so that means half the things I said today are just going to look stupid in approximately 100 hours. But that's the beauty of
I
it.
I won't clip any of them, I promise.
Okay, sounds good. We'll have a preview out. I don't know if tomorrow or probably with the Friday game. I would
Tuesday.
bet on Tuesday is when we'll have the preview out of Queens. Um, so tune in for that. Yeah, you got anything else?
I do not. We can sign off.
All right. Well, appreciate everybody tuning in. If you were jumping in, if you jumped into this one, you didn't watch our live our quick reactions to Purdue winning the Big Ten tournament championship, go check that out. That's also up on the feed. Go follow us on Boilers and Stands. Kraig and Braggs have done an incredible job this week of getting stuff up there. On YouTube, also, I believe some of the interviews will be going up. So those will also be there if you want to get some kind of behind the scenes footage of talking to the players and things of that nature. The preview show Tuesday, maybe some other show at some random point. Who knows? It's March. Anything can happen. One of the busier weeks, but one of the most fun weeks of the entire year coming up this week. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you all for the preview show on Tuesday.